And for those of you who do know Reverend Jim Jones. So I thought it would be interesting to see the numerology of, we can look back on his life and some of the choices that he made and see if it coincides with what you have.
I'll start out with just the core numbers. There is something very significant. His life path was pretty interesting. So this is interesting because I actually have a lot of people in my life that have similar numbers to this. Not saying they're serial
I'll
killers.
say don't drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
Right.
In particular, the reason why his life path is this is because he has karmic debt. Basically, karmic debt is...
Hi everyone, my name is Misti Gaither and welcome to Quest, a journey into true crime and the paranormal. I'm excited we have here Aidan Issac, who is a master numerologist and life coach, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. One of the reasons I'm excited, I think you're wonderful, but I don't know a lot about numerology. About numbers. People are more focused on astrology, talking about their signs and stuff. But tell me, like numerology, that it gets more in depth than astrology does.
Astrology is incredibly complex as a system. The thing that got me into numerology is that astrology, westernized astrology, is actually behind by the sky. So it wasn't accurate information for me enough to be able to really get to know people. I got into Vedic astrology because it still follows the sky placement, so it allowed me to get more accuracy on reads. So numerology, I like to consider it more like this is your blueprint of what intentions you have set for doing, general themes of what you're here to do in life and how your energy works with it, what type of work you want to get done. And so it's more broad, it's a little bit vague, but it's more broad, and it gives an overall arcing view on like the basics of what you're here to do.
The numerology, and you're born on a certain day, and now would that predestine what you do, or do you have, is your future already mapped out and what you're going to do or become, or is it the free will that you make your own choices?
So I love that question. The day you're born is very significant. Numerology runs off of your identity as well. I've talked with my partner about the fact that our names, our identities, are our first mantras coming into this world. So the significance of numerology is pulling the energetic reading of what the name means and what you're actually saying when my name is this. And it's the first identity that's given to us. And the idea behind numerology is that when we are deciding to come in, the inspiration of our name goes to our parents. It's why they tend to choose the perfect sound, like they're like, no, it's this. So that identity is what we pull from. But what's interesting about numerology is there is free will, where we get married to other people. We choose nicknames, we may change our names, all kinds of things. So that actually plays significance as well, because it is an identity shift within the metaphysical body that's here now. So while we do read up for birth names, it's not to cut off that you may change in the future and you may shift, or you may want to introduce more things into your life.
Now let me ask you something, Dale. Is it based on not just your birth date, but like how many letters are in your name, or is it just like where does the other numbers come in?
So it comes in at your birth name. I always ask people, hey, give me your birth name, the one on your birth certificate. This is your first identity. It's very significant to what you're here to do. So first, middle, and last name. Some people have 2 middle names. Some people have 2 last names. It's all relevant. Now, I've met people who have been born into the world and they never felt connected with their name. And that's significant too, because I've had some people get 2 names at birth, one not be the one, and then them change it later on, like a month later. And I'm like, that's the one I need then. So sometimes it's not always accurate when we're born, but as our identity solidifies in that first identity, that's what we pull from. And then as your second, third, however many identities you may have while you're down here developing, this can be through marriage. A lot of people went to numerologists to figure out if they should get married to someone, because you can check to see what taking someone's name on would do for your energy. And if it conflicted, it wasn't going to be a good marriage, they wouldn't take the last name.
How about that? Well, I'm excited because Aidan, he did my numerology and my numbers. So I don't know what it is. So y'all are going to hear the good, the bad, the ugly, I guess, here with me. If it's too ugly, don't say it. But we're also he's going to be doing, I submitted, because you know how I am about serial killers and stuff. So I submitted a name and birth date and the date of death of a particular, I'll call him a serial killer. Maybe in some ways he's not like, John Wayne Gacy or something, but was responsible for the murders of hundreds of people. So we're going to do mine, which no connection to the serial killer. I'm anxious to see, because you do not know nothing about the person that I gave you. Absolutely. And so I'm anxious to see what we go over that, like parallels to his life and death.
Very. I hope you can help me out with that, because again, I know nothing about this character. I can understand his life through his numbers, and that's all I can give. So it'll be interesting.
So I guess without further ado, let me have it.
But to start, basically, Misty, I'll start with your life path number. This is going to be the theme of your life. What you were intended on having be just like what the world kind of throws at you as far as like events, opportunities, learning, all of that. And I will say you are definitely a fighter, because the 8 is the CEO archetype. Also, I like to call them they're not here to BS at all. They're here to find the power and gain their own sense over their life. Now, whatever power means to you is up to you. You're a very wise version of this number. Now, the numbers preceding that add up to your 8 play influence. So, an example, you are the 1-7 that gets added together to make your 8. You're going to be a different 8 than, say, a 5-3 that gets added together to make an 8. So the type of CEO type that you're going to be big in business. You're also wanting to establish some sort of power, but the trick is you have to do it the correct way. So 8s come in already.
So it's not just going to come to me.
No.
I'm about to work for it.
Work, yes.
Right.
But I will say this. There's a reason why 8s go through that. In order to be an effective leader, you have to learn how to lead correctly. And I'm sure you recognize this as just a concept, an idea, but these are the people that end up being the best CEOs, the best of the best, but it's because they started as a janitor. They started from there, they worked their way up, they learned to respect every part of the business. So when they hit CEO, there's a part of them that understands, I will never treat y'all the way that I went through. And they learn how to lead effectively. They become the best leaders, the best bosses, the best CEOs. But like I said, they had to work for it, and it had to be a very humbling experience, because if you use power incorrectly, it will be taken for you like that. You will not have it anymore.
Right.
And so there's this feeling of feeling powerless, but also powerful, that needs to be balanced between individuals that have the 8. They're also karmic numbers, and this is pretty interesting, but a lot of the preloaded information that you understand with business and how to get things done, it comes from previous lives. So 8s indicate that, of previous lives where you're pulling information from it to use in this life, which is why you have the good business sense naturally. The thing about that is that it also pulls from whatever experiences you had in those lives. This can be the good, bad, or ugly. So when you have certain like fears or understandings about things in this world, other people will not connect to it as easily as you. There's no need to fear about that. That never happens.
Right.
But there's a part of you that knows that it can. And that part of you is probably in a life where it did happen.
Got you. Now, let me ask you, now, can you tell from the numerology, like how many past lives that you may have had, or you just no?
I can
Only
get a
Shirley
guess.
MacLaine can. Gotcha.
I can gauge it based on what type of development you're doing. I can probably say, hey, if you're doing some higher range, like higher lessons, chances are you've been here quite a number of times.
Gotcha. Okay.
Because you won't be able to do that right out the gate. And I will say that you're up there. Because eights really are the lives that you're here to prove yourself in. And it's not easy, but you can do it. And you can do it because the eights never give up. They're powerhouses. They keep going despite the elements, which makes them incredibly great in business because I tell you what, it's ruthless out there.
Tell me.
Yeah. That being said, the 1 and 7 that get added together to make the CEO means that the type of business person that you are has the 1, which represents leadership, individuality, independence. You're always going to be someone that goes and gets it. The 7 is a hermit archetype. This is the person that I tend to call them the spiritual scientists. These are people who normally start out very logical minded, wanting to understand the science of this world. But as they delve deeper, they're really here to understand the wisdom within everything and the deeper matter. So they tend to be pretty spiritual on the spirit side of trying to understand all of this, which is why this is phenomenal for you, to be honest. It
Ta-da!
fits. Yeah. You're doing your destiny.
Right. I'm like, wow. Okay.
Yes. But that's the part of you that just wants to know more, wants to gather more wisdom, wants to understand it, wants to delve deep and really get wisdom. And the types of 7s that come out of that, they have wisdom to share for others from their research. And I feel like you do it, but you do it as a business, which is what you do here. There's more hermit energy to you because your destiny number, also known as the expression number, is how you express the theme of your life, which is the 8, that CEO type. You express yourself as a CEO that's more wisdom and leadership oriented, but you do it as a spiritual scientist, as the number 7. And the numbers that add up that 7 are the 1 and 6. So you keep the independence, but the type of wisdom seeker that you are really has a big heart for those around you because the 6 is known as the harmonizer. You're basically big business type that cares for the people around you, and it's really helping you mature into your final form, as I like to say. The maturity number is
So
that final
I don't
form.
mean to interrupt you, but what does the final form mean?
The final form is your maturity number, which is what all the lessons in numerology are kind of shaping and molding your soul to become. And yours is the 6. But it's a more mentory 6. So 6s are caregivers. They're also known as harmonizers. These are people who want to help the world around them, their loved ones. Family is a big thing. I see it quite often with you in the community, honestly. But you're maturing into more of that community giver and being able to be there for the people that you care about. But in particular, the type of 6 that you are has the 1 and the 5, which shows me that you have an independence to how you care give for others. But the 5 is the adventurer, also a variety enjoyer of life. It's tending to live life on your senses, so you don't like to be constricted. So it makes you a mentor type that's more like a teacher, less like a person that's here to provide everything for everyone. I like your numbers a lot. It's a very emphasis on like you're here for business, but you have an equal side of you that wants to understand everything, like the mysticism of everything. I will say that you kind of come across as a powerhouse too. I think it's why the suits and everything suit you very well.
Ah,
Yeah.
I just was trying to look sharp.
Yeah, no, you look great.
Thank you.
You function very well as far as a spokesperson for what you do. But yeah, that's probably why there's a sense of understanding that you not only want to be that powerhouse, you want to present as someone that is very comfortable and confident about what they bring. And you do it. I honestly see it.
Now, was there a number or anything in there like money coming or no?
So.
Oh, here we go. The bad. I knew it.
It's not the bad.
Oh, okay. Oh, God, it's the ugly.
It's not the ugly.
Ah,
I will say a bit of what numerology can help with is how to deal with any problems that may come up with. So this can include money issues. So basically, there is a tendency to kind of meddle too much for you
Okay.
or ignore it entirely.
That's me. I think the last part sounds more like me. Just,
Yes.
it'll go away.
There's a sense of wanting, because okay, your balance number is what determines this.
Okay.
Yours is the 7, which is that hermit, the one that wants to crawl deep into their mind and disappear from the world. So the best way, that's how you deal with problems too, but the best way that you can deal with them is you have to come back to deal with them in their small stage, because they're never going to disappear. So the sooner you get it done, the less stress you're going to have. But as someone who has heavy 7s in your chart, it can feel tempting to just kind of like ignore it away, will it
That's what
away,
I
or
do.
hide in the mind. Yeah.
The library is open. I have been read. Oh my God.
But yeah, basically catching it in the early stage, I think that can help a lot, including if you're having any issues with money. This will help a lot.
Like who started off? Like who came up with, like
Yeah,
who
I
who
know a
came up
brief
with all this
history.
charts and stuff? Like, I mean, I'm sure just one day somebody, it just happened and somebody figured all this out. And
Philosophers.
the formula, and I just think it's really interesting. I really
Very,
do.
yeah. And a little tidbit there, it was actually created by Pythagoras. He created the Pythagorean version of numerology, which there's Chaldean. I'm trying to learn that one, which is they consider more accurate, but it's more in depth. So I'm taking my time with that. But the system that I use now is the more bottom line one, just gets it done. And he actually created this system unknowingly by trying to read the energy of music. And so within that, they created numerology of understanding how to read the meaning behind words, behind intentions with words and sound. So we use that with language, and that's how we're able to read our energy.
Well, you know what? I can tell that you actually enjoy what you do.
Yeah.
And I think that that's one of the blessings in life is to, to do what you love.
Yes.
To your work, and you could just be like, I'm making money, but I'm doing what I love, and you can, your eyes light up when you talk, talk about this.
This
and
is
I
a
think
big part.
yeah, and so I really think that that's, just says a lot about you, and then when somebody wants to come to you and have their numbers done or whatever that you may call it, and that they know that they'll be in good hands
Of
because
course, yeah.
that you have that passion, that love for what you do.
Oh yeah, numerology was something that helped me big on understanding what I needed to do. If I can pass that on and make it easier for people, that's the goal. If we can make it easy, y'all, and you can just get right on your destinies, let's go.
Sounds good. And we're going to take just a small break. I'm going to thank our sponsors, and then we will come back and talk about one of my favorite subjects. I don't know, maybe it's in my numbers, serial killers. All right, I want to thank Chevron's for being a sponsor of our show. They are located in Metairie on Causeway. And like I always say, if you want some of the best gumbo here in the New Orleans, and I know you've ate there,
Oh, I have.
and it's wonderful. They have po' boys. They have just so many different foods to really choose from with their gumbo. They have several kinds of gumbo. So be sure to try them out and tell them that you heard about them on the show. And we also have the Haunted Hotel on Ursulines in New Orleans, and it is where it is rumored that the Axeman stayed when he was, doing his dirt. Me and Catherine and some friends, we have stayed there and investigated several times. And I must say, without any hesitation or qualms, it is haunted. So you can go to hauntedhotelnola.com and book your room. And
Happy haunting.
yeah, happy haunting. Mark your calendars for March the 23rd. New Iberia, believe it or not, is hosting their first Paracon.
Oh.
And when I tell you, they are bringing in some of the big names, Dave Schrader, Sarah Lemos, Jeremy Leonard. He was on my show a few weeks ago, the Cajun Demonologist. Also on 28 Days Haunted. Shane Pittman from the Holzer Files, and also 28 Days Haunted. And I'll also be there. And so it's really a great opportunity. And it's hosted by Louisiana Spirits. And if you get VIP tickets, you'll also get to go on a ghost hunt with some of those famous people Saturday night.
That is phenomenal.
I know.
Everyone should get tickets.
And I mean, who would ever thought New Iberia would have a
Yeah.
Paracon? And it's called Cajun Country Paracon.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is very interesting.
So, oh yeah. And so our show is actually a sponsor of the Paracon too.
Oh.
So, and we'll have a table set up there. And I'm just really looking forward to meeting so many new people and so many people in the field. I really can't wait. So I thought of what I thought was a really cool idea, how we could bring in, I can't say my love, I guess my interest about serial killers, because I think what your numerology kind of proved and also proved to me is I like the science and the thinking and the, not exactly about the killings, but how their mind works to be able to do what they do. And it's just, like I said, it's not about the actual killing, it's just about the mechanics of the brain that's going on with them.
Their choices as well.
Yeah. I gave him he's really probably not categorized as a serial killer, but in a way that he was. I mean, over 900 people died through mass suicide in Jonestown in Guyana, and that was in November of 1978. I believe November the 18th. In 1978, and for those of you who do know, is Reverend Jim Jones. So I thought it would be interesting to see what the numerology of, according to his birth and death dates, what we can look back on his life and some of the choices that he made and see if it coincides with what you have.
That would be fascinating.
All
I'm
right.
super excited for this. I'll start out with just the core numbers.
Mm-hmm.
There is something very significant, so I had to put it aside so we can remember to talk about it.
Okay.
So Mr. James Jones, his life path was pretty interesting. It was the 5, which is that adventurer, someone here that is meant to live life on their senses. Being able to kind of jump from sense to sense. These are people who have their favorite food places, their favorite colognes, or they like to have the more physical experiences. Love language may be touch in comparison for these people, but they're here to just like live life through their senses. So their senses tend to be a big part of their life, and in particular, the numbers that add up to equal that 5 is the 1 and the 4. So this is interesting because I actually have a lot of people in my life that have similar numbers to this. Not saying they're serial
I'll
killers.
say don't drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah,
Right.
Don't drink their Kool-Aid. But basically what I've noticed with this type of 5 life path is that these are people who have the 1, which is, again, the independence leadership part of them. But the 4 is a builder. This is someone who is here to learn foundation, and the 4 corners of foundation to uphold all the change and variety that they're wanting in their life. So they're going to feel a sense of, I want to be spontaneous and I want to go crazy and I want to let go. But then that 4 is like, you need a foundation. So there's always this sense of like overindulgences or underindulgences. And their balance is kind of in that. But we tend to explain it as a roller coaster life, where it's ups and downs throughout the whole life. But what they need to recognize is that they're still firmly on the track. So while they feel like they can't control their outside elements, it is about recognizing that you never come off the track through the ups and downs. So there is still foundation where you're at through the change. It is scary for some of these people because they never really get the foundation they crave, and they never really get to feel comfortable being down here, in addition to like being able to explore and have the freedom that they want to. So they live in a very uncomfortable state. But in particular, the reason why his life path is this is because he has karmic debt, or he had karmic debt when he was here. Basically, karmic debt is only present in a chart when someone's here to repay something karmically that they did in a different life. What it means is they come in often with a sense of service to others. Oftentimes the soul can feel a little restrained because of that, because it allows them to like, it makes them have this feeling of like, I have to serve others. I'm a servant, and I hate it, and I want my freedom, and I don't want to do this. But I guarantee in his early life there was this sense of I need to serve others, and there is a point where karmic debt does get paid off, where people finally think, oh, okay, I don't have to serve others as much. And I've had a few people reach that point. I always say if you have karmic debt in your chart, once you start feeling like you're getting more selfish and you feel like it's okay, chances are you've paid your debt. And for him, he had that life, he was trying to balance out some karma. But it really, really restricted his ability to just like feel comfortable, have foundation through all the chaos. So he may have been trying to have control in some ways to help ground him in that uncontrolled feeling. In particular, the karmic debt 14 indicates that in a past life, he may have not respected his freedoms or the freedoms of other people. And so the whole idea is that he must live in life now as someone who doesn't really get to feel foundation or freedom. He has to live in the middle of that. And to understand that you can't be an escapist of it, you have to make life still work for you, but you also can't restrict anyone else, because that's a restriction of someone else's freedom that you would have to pay back eventually.
So that
It's
would be
just to
like
even it out.
always have that craving to have a foundation, to belong,
Yes.
to have normacy.
A sense of like, I want foundation. I don't want to stress about everything being everywhere, but just having to go with the flow regardless. So it was just this stressor of like, I want freedom. I want to get lost in the excesses. He probably got into drugs in some
did.
way, or
He
excesses.
did.
Yeah. That's often a form of escapism that can go too far. And I bet in this life it was big that he was to learn not to do that, not to run from it, but to hang strong, trust it, and see that the foundation never leaves him. Now, karmic debt lives can be difficult for some people, because you're coming in, if karma is a bank account and we all get $100 to enjoy in our life, to like get something without having to give something. We use that bank account of karma. And when you have debt, it's like you're negative $200 when you first start life. So you have to give more than you take until it's paid back. And that's how balancing of karma can work out. And numerology spells it out that way.
Does it say anything that maybe like his childhood, or kind of touches anything on that?
His childhood was very everywhere. Also, people, I'm reading from the pinnacles and the cycles. So, pinnacles, there's 4 pinnacles in numerology, and it's 4 periods of your life of development. Then you have cycles, there's 3 of them in everyone's life, and same thing, path of development. They overlay each other to give you a sense of like what changes went through and what they had to go through to mold who they were. So when he first started out, his first pinnacle was in the 9. 9s are humanitarians. From his chart, I can see that being a part of community was big for him.
It actually was, and not to interrupt you, but I thought that maybe when you do the points, and I could kind of explain
Yeah, of
to you,
course.
because you don't know.
Yeah,
you jumped
I'd
up,
love
right? You
to.
don't, okay. And like the humanitarian, he took on a lot of homeless people and gave them, and it was kind of a control thing for him, but he gave them shelter,
Yep.
food, clothes. And that's why that they had such a blind following of him, because he tried to take care of them at first, and kind of lure them in. And the humanitarian part, that's how he first started out, was
Right.
doing those good things.
Yeah, from a young age, his life was all about change, nothing consistent, kind of having to just go through the life of things constantly, his foundation being ripped in some way.
Let me see, his mom and his dad, like one was in the hospital all the time and the other one was an alcoholic. So they said, I believe it was in Indiana, and he would run, like be in the streets 3, 4 years old,
No foundations.
like
Yeah.
totally without, naked, no clothes. And the ladies in the church would come and clothe him, and they would bring him to church. And so he didn't have, when you said that the foundation was shaky and all that he craved it.
Yeah.
And that's because right off the bat, he never
That's his
had
experience.
that. Right.
Yeah. And I see that in addition to people with nines in their chart. These are humanitarians. These are people that learn to love people despite anything, and they understand that there's a connection through all of us. And this isn't just through people. This is through nature. This is through Mother Earth. This is through spirit, energy, forces everywhere. And they have this need to push humanity forward in good ways. From what I'm already seeing, that all was there, but I feel like because this life was a very big karmic life, this was a sense of like he was already having trouble restricting the freedom of others and restricting his own ability to just like keep his own freedoms under attention. So he's already coming into this life trying to right that wrong, and he's throwing himself into a life that already had a bunch of change. But nines also get a rough start with family because they have to learn how to unconditionally love. And so we often get some crazy characters in our starting families that for nines, where they have to learn how to love outside of it, or just see that we're all connected regardless of our differences. And so it sounds like he definitely went through that growing up. But it's kind of what pushed him, and it's kind of cool that the church did get involved. A lot of nines I find do happen to lean towards more religious views because there is some light to a lot of the practices that encourage things that nines naturally believe in. Things like humanitarianism, taking care of the homeless, helping each other when we're in need, not judging anyone because of anything, or even outside their control. I often see if they're in churches, a lot of nine figureheads, they tend to express why it's important to unconditionally love everyone. And this includes like normally groups that the church does not agree with. But starting out there, he probably experienced the kindness early on from the chaos of what was so negative in his life, this perpetuating this sense of like, see, this is what needs to be continued. This is what's good. Because he not only had the nine starting out there, but it was a large part of his core purpose here. His expression is the leader, which is the 10. So coming in with the 5 as the adventurer, he's meant to live life through his senses, but he never really gets foundation. But he goes through it as a leader. And leaders, as you can see, I'm understanding he led people. From your explanations, he led a lot of people. He was meant to be a leader. He was definitely, because the expression number, his destiny was the 10, which is the leader meant to lead. Now, with 10s, it's very difficult sometimes to have a 10 and not build up negative karma in general, and this is why. Leaders have to take themselves into account before the people below them. Because they're having to step out front, they kind of have to learn how to do it on their own. And a lot of people with that number, they tend to get a harsher reality because they are not able to connect to people the same way. They have to learn how to do it on their own. And there's plenty of like stars in Hollywood, rappers that I've looked up for fun, where their life path is the leader. And I'm like, that's why the struggle was hard, because they couldn't have anyone help them. They had to learn how to be individual. And for him, he had to learn how to be an individual, but also keep his humanity attached to the collective. But he again had to balance that too. So the numbers 9 and 1 equal his 10. The 9 is the humanitarian. The 1 is the independent leader.
Right.
And so he had to be an independent leader that still felt connected to the collective. And you can ask yourself, like, how do you do that? How do you still feel connected to everyone but have to isolate from everyone too? And so that balance can be rough, but it was meant to keep him, I believe, from not having the connection to everyone, but that's a rough energy to try to balance as well, which is probably why, again, he put himself first in a lot of ways. But he did it under the collective. It was just an act of control in the end, though. So,
correct.
yeah.
And then you touched on him because he was on drugs, and the more drugs that he would take, the more paranoid that he would get.
Yes.
And so it was,
and his lack of sense of control.
Right. Yeah. Definitely, because it was
Connecting dots.
not a good mix, But then he was such a charismatic and a leader. I mean, you can't really argue with that, because He was in California, and then like 3,000 people went with him to Guyana. They followed him there.
He had a very lucky energy about him. So nines have a natural luck to them. They have such pure intentions, and the universe tends to bless that by giving them pure intentions. And so they can end up being amazing leaders, but having conflicts with like the more ego driven numbers can often turn into them using it to get what they want. And so he was very charismatic. And I do think that from reading this, he had a deep heart for people. He really, really did. And he did have good intentions. It veered. It veered off.
Left. Way left.
So his intentions at the beginning may have been very pure and wanting to help the world, and that's definitely how he got people involved with him. But his need to control, and from what I see, just the fight within him trying to balance it all was definitely what complicates it.
Now, let me ask you something about his death. Does it show anything about what was going on during that time that he, because he convinced 900 and something people, 300 and something were children, gave them, I found out it wasn't exactly Kool-Aid. It was more of a flavor type water, and, to drink it it had cyanide. And he actually convinced that the world was against them and that they needed to do this to go to heaven. And then on the other hand, they did it, but there also were gunmen there that if they didn't do it, they would be killed. So it was kind of like, do I want to be shot or do I want to take? So I was just wondering.
He took his life, is what I'm understanding.
Well, there's some kind of a question there because on that day he was shot. They don't know who shot. Yeah,
Okay.
So I don't know. I've heard that he killed himself. I heard that a nurse did it that was there. I've heard that one of his people were ordered to do it. He also had ordered like a congressman and like 2 or 3 people that had came there to check on the U.S. citizens, and they went back, and then he had them killed on the runway strip,
Okay, so there's limited information I can pull from his death right now. But what I do have is numerology has cycles, and it has personal years and personal months. And this kind of gives you the development of what process they're in. I kind of see it as like a circle going up, where you start from like 1 all the way up to, 10. And you have points of your life where you're having develop a certain way. This year for him was all about hermiting away, building his foundation in his wisdom, and also speaking it. And so that being hermited away with just your thoughts can create a bit of mania. I could imagine. But this year that he died, I imagine there was a lot of whatever his mind was at, he was in that more than usual this year that he did die. It again all about speaking the truth, but building a foundation too. And so I think he was really big about like expressing his views at that year, as well as just wanting to build a system with the people around him. But the fact that he took out so many and then took out himself or was taken out, to me shows that this could have played a part being stuck in the mind for that year. It's meant to be a reflection year for people when they hit their 7 year. For instance, I'm in my 9th year right now, but when I was in my 7th year, that's when I started wanting to work more from home so that I can just be in the mind and zone out and not have to be so active. He was there. And so I have no idea about like what type of terror he went through while being just in his head. But being that his actions were very, very violent oriented at that point, I can only guess that he was struggling mentally.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to be here, and we'll be posting how that people could get in contact with you, on the show. And so that way, I really enjoyed. Thank you so much for doing my numerology, and it was spot on. It was good. You
I
know,
like your chart.
Yeah, it's it is. And then I really appreciate you taking the time to do one on Jim Jones, because it just really, I mean, even though we don't understand why that he did it, but in a way we kind of do.
Yeah, we can
You know?
understand the ingredients. We may not understand the recipe he had,
Right.
but we understand the ingredients that he had working with
Right.
it.
So, I mean, that's really interesting, and I appreciate you coming and being on the show. Appreciate your friendship, and
Misti.
you know, hope you'll join us again.
I would love to.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much, and be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that like button and share, and tell your friends. And I will see you next week on Quest. Good night.